Um, I'm Dewi Fortuna, and in this video, I would like to answer the question in exercise 2. In exercise 2, there is 2 questions that we should answer. The first one is topic of the text, and the second one is the summary of the text or the things that the writer wants to tell us. Okay, so let's answer the first question. What is the topic of the text? The text is about bacteria, so the topic of the passage is the size of bacteria. Why? Let's read the text. So let's read the paragraph 1 of the text. Bacteria are extremely small living things. While we measure our own size in inches or centimeters, bacterial size is measured in microns. 1 micron is 1,000 of a millimeter, a pinhead, which is about a millimeter across. Rod-shaped bacteria are usually from 2 to 4 microns long, while rounded ones are generally 1 micron in diameter. Thus, if you enlarge a founded bacterium 1,000 times, it will be just about the size of a pinhead. An adult human magnified by the same amount would be over a mile, or 1.6 kilometer tall. Let's move on to paragraph 2 of the text. Even with an ordinary microscope, you must look closely to see bacteria. Using a magnification of 100 times, one finds that bacteria are barely visible as tiny rods or dots. One cannot make out anything of their structure. Using special stains, one can see that some bacteria have attached to them wavy-looking hairs called flagella. Others have only one flagellum. The flagella rotate, pushing the bacteria through the water. Many bacteria lack flagella and cannot move about by their own power, while others can glide along over surface by some little understood mechanism. And this is the last paragraph of the text. From the bacterial point of view, the world is a very different place from what it is to humans. To a bacterium, water is as thick as molasses is to us. Bacteria are so small that they are influenced by movements of the chemical molecules around them. Bacteria under the microscope, even those with no flagella, often bounce about in the water. This is because they collide with the water molecules and are pushed this way and that. Molecules move so rapidly that within a tenth of a second, the molecules around a bacterium have all been replaced by new ones. Even bacteria without flagella are thus constantly exposed to a changing environment. Okay, so based on the text, my answer is for the topic of the text is the size of bacteria. Why? Let's break down paragraph by paragraph. In the paragraph 1, the blue color is like giving details that this text talking about the size of bacteria. The first bold one is bacteria are extremely small living things. In this sentence, it says that bacteria are small. Okay, so it talk about size, right? And then we move on to the next one. Bacterial size is measured in microns. 1 micron is 1,000 of a millimeter, a pinhead, which is about a millimeter across. So in the next sentence, it talks about the size of the bacteria too. Why? Because in that sentence, bacterial size is measured in microns, which means that micron is really, really small, and we should look at with a microscope. If you want to see the things that measure in microns, we should use microscopes. So I think in that sentence, it still talk about the bacterial size. Still in the next sentence, it still talk about the size of the bacteria. Like this one, I give the blue one. Bacteria are usually from 2 to 4 microns long. And in the next sentence that I gave a blue color, size of a pinhead. So it's really clear that in this paragraph talk about the size of a bacteria in microns and like a pinhead, the size of a pinhead. So the paragraph want to talk about the size of the bacteria. Let's move on to paragraph number 2. Second paragraph. The blue one is, one finds that bacteria are barely visible as tiny rods or dots. Barely visible. It means that human cannot see the bacteria if we not use the microscope, because they are barely visible as a tiny rods or dots. Dots really small, so that's why bacteria is in the microns. And even with an ordinary microscope, you must look closely to see the bacteria. Using a magnification of 100 times, one finds that bacteria are barely visible as tiny rods or dots. And in this paragraph, it talks about the size, also the flagella, because a lot of persons try to see the bacteria and one can see them as a dot and it looks like the size of a pinhead, and the other one can see the structure too, like they have a hair, like a wavy looking hair, flagella. It's called flagella. So it still talked about the size of the bacteria. There's only one blue line in this text. Bacteria are so small that they are influenced by the movements of the chemical molecules around them. So again, in this sentence, they talked about the size too. Bacteria are so small. It's talk about the size: small, big, huge, tiny. So yeah, talk about the size again, and then in this paragraph they talk about the flagella too, how they see the bacteria under the microscope and see the flagella. So that's why, based on this explanation, I think the topic of the text is the size of the bacteria. Is what the writer trying to tell us. Can you summarize the text? So I think if we need to summarize the text, my summary for the text is, I'm sorry, I will read it. Bacteria are extremely small living things. While we measure our own size in inches or centimeters, bacterial size is measured in microns. Even with an ordinary microscope, we must look closely to see the bacteria. From the bacterial point of view, the world is a very different place from what it is to humans. Bacteria are so small that they are influenced by the movements of the chemical molecules around them. So I think that is the summary of the text. And the writer is trying to tell us that about the size of the bacteria, trying to say that the bacteria is really small and barely visible, and we need to, even with an ordinary microscope, we should look closely to see the bacteria. And I think the writer wants to tell us about the size about the bacteria. Is we're going to answer a true or false questions. Yep, the first question is, you can look bacteria closely with microscope. I think the answer is false. It's a bit confusing, but if we look at the text, there is a sentence that say, even with ordinary microscope, you must look closely to see the bacteria. So even if you're already using the microscope, you should still look closely to see the bacteria. So I think for the first question, the answer is false. Next question. Bacteria is barely recognized by humans. The answer is true. Because bacteria is extremely small living things, we need to see them with microscope. Because in the text, bacteria is measured in microns, and they are extremely small living things. They are barely visible, so I think that's why bacteria is barely recognized by human. And there is a sentence that supports my answer. If you enlarge a founded bacterium 8,000 times, it will be just about the size of pinhead. An adult human magnified by the same amount would be over a mile, or 1.6 kilometers tall. So, next question, the third question. Bacteria look like a pinhead because of its size. Bacteria look like a pinhead because of its size. I think the answer is false, because in the text it says that bacteria have a size like a pinhead, not how they look. Not they look like a pinhead, but their size like a pinhead, like small. There is a sentence that supports my answer. Thus, if you enlarge a founded bacterium 1,000 times, it will be just about the size of a pinhead. So my question for question number 3 is false. And the last question. Chemical molecules are affected by bacteria's movement. And the answer is false, because, as you can see, because it's not the chemical molecules that got affected, but it's the bacteria. So that get affected is not the chemical molecules, but the vice versa. It's the bacteria. And there is a sentence that supports my answer. Bacteria are so small that they are influenced by the movement of the chemical molecules around them. And so that's my answer for exercise 2, the topic of the text, the summary of the text, true and false questions. So there's the answer in this video. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, and see you in the next video.